Robert, thanks so much for joining us inside the Ice House.
Yeah, it's thrilled to be here.
So let's begin with the story behind ATM at the Moment Media. Was there a specific moment in your career when you realized that ATM needed to be more than just an idea? What inspired you to launch the company earlier in 2025?
Yeah, Lance, it's a great question. I've always been in media, advertising, and some in technology as well too. But I've always started. I'm a proud NBC page, so I still have the peacock tie for any fans of 30 Rock.
Yeah,
I was Kenneth the Page. I actually got to work the pilot of 30 Rock when I was a page as well too. That was shot in Studio 8H, which is the Saturday Night Live studio. So since then, from college, I really have been in media and then advertising and tech as well too. And I really enjoyed the entrepreneurship. So working in a really large company to get things done for the executives that I was working with at the time. And then I got to do a lot of great, exciting things within those companies as well too. But as media started to change, news started to change, and me working within communications and marketing, I felt there was an opportunity to spotlight more of the people, more of the things that are going on, and the culture of the business of what we call now advertising, tech, and media, ATM. And so it was kind of this funny little thing that, oh, hey guys, I'm going to launch this thing. And I want, my friends in the industry, you're going to have to sponsor it. And I'm like, ha, 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 ha. All right, now back to work to our large, billion-dollar global companies. And then when things would happen, you'd be like, oh, ATM should have covered this. That would have been great for ATM. So it was really more of a joke because I never thought, oh, this is what I wanted to do. And then when the ringing in my head continued to grow about this is an opportunity, this is not being met right now in the industry, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. So I was the CMO of Group M. Now it's WPP Media, one of the largest media buying companies in the world. And so I said toward the end of that summer of last year, 2024, okay, I'm going to do this. And then one of my mentors, Brian Lesser, took the global job as CEO of now WPP Media. And I was like, well, I can't leave. He's one of my closest friends, mentors. I want to help him. But I couldn't get it out of my head, truthfully. And so I went to him and said, hey, Brian, I need to talk to my friend Brian, not the global CEO right now. And I said, I'll dedicate 6 months to you. I want you to get up on your feet. But then I want you to let me do this opportunity. And he had already known, I'd been thinking of things like that. And he was super supportive. They're one of our sponsors when I left. And I then just started talking to my industry contacts and letting them know what's going on. And what I wanted to know was yes, tell me about what's happening in business, but also tell me what it's like to be a working mother. Tell me what it's like when you're planning travel for your 5-person family, and finding the, Us Weekly or the People magazine side of this industry. I found that's really kind of grew our audience. And really what we've honed in now. So we launched May 20th, the week after traditional Upfronts Week, which is the big kind of dog and pony show of all the media networks. And then we kind of really went public then at Cannes as well too, and a lot of great content. But I've been so thrilled and touched by not only does the industry understand this and wants to be a part of it, but how sponsorship dollars have come up from very large media companies to be we need a different way to tell stories and a different way to help cut through clutter that is not the traditional ways, which sometimes through journalism, sometimes through brand marketing. And we provide that media publishing that not only talks about the people, but also the culture.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point there, right? Cutting through the clutter, because media as a whole is such a saturated environment, right? There's media companies all over the place covering things in different ways. I mean, here at the NYC, as we're obviously doing right now, we have a media wing inside the Ice House, a part of it, other short form areas a part of it as well, right? It's a really saturated environment, as well as an environment that's constantly changing and constantly evolving as well. Everyone is competing ultimately for clicks, for views, for those sponsorship dollars, those advertising dollars. So how does ATM now differ from that traditional journalism that influence-driven storytelling, how does ATM differ itself and really cut through the clutter, as you mentioned before?
Yeah. So when someone comes to ATM, they know that they're in a safe environment. And that's not to say I don't want fun, spicy, interesting content. I do. That's not to say if you want to say, hey, I've got a word for the industry and I want to use your platform to do it, I beg of you, please come onto our platform. But what I have found and what I found interesting that has really driven now almost 4 million views of our content across all of our social platforms, as well as ATM.media, our website here, is that people, when they feel safe, that like there's not going to be a quote taken out of context, they start to relax a little bit, they start to open up a little bit more, and they want to tell those stories. And so, for instance, I'll use his name. You guys can cut it if you need to. I don't know the permissions, but there's an industry luminary who has been a part of the industry. His name is Michael Kasson, and he was kind enough to give me an interview even before I launched. And so what I told him is like, everyone knows who Michael Kasson is, at least in the advertising media industry, but I don't know how Michael Kasson became Michael Kasson, if you will, right? So tell me, what was your first job, right? Take me through that. And when you have the power of the edit too, we can talk for 30 minutes and then we put something down for 5 minutes that makes it really punchy, really interesting, and can really drive viewership. And so he started talking to me about he was a tax lawyer for an entertainment company, and then he went into, he saw that home video was growing. And so he went to go work for this guy, Jose Menendez, who was working in home video. And I go, whoa, like, murdered by his 2 sons, Jose Menendez? I go, who knows this in the industry? This is fascinating. He goes, well, I don't know. I don't really talk about it. And I go, well, that's what I want to talk about. And so so when people kind of lean back and just start talking, and because of my experience the last 20 years working in comms and media, I feel like I can find those interesting nuggets that I haven't heard before and then really amplify those. And then really using the network of the people on our platform to then champion out, because it's something they're proud of. It's something maybe someone hasn't heard before. It's not just about the new mousetrap that some company is launching. It's about a little bit about the mousetrap, a little bit about them, but a little bit more about just like leadership and their thoughts on that. And I find that there isn't an outlet right now, as cluttered as it is in traditional media or brand marketing. And if it comes from a brand, sometimes people are like for instance, I love Delta, but I don't know how often I'm going to their Instagram page, right? But if I had an influencer who was passionate about Delta to tell me what they're doing, I'd probably listen to them. I consider in some ways for a company, I'm an influencer for them because I'm going to shout out what I think is cool and interesting, and I'm going to champion you, but I'm also in a safe environment, but I'm also going to shout out maybe things that people don't know you about from just an outside perspective. Sure.
And so you would say that your platform and what you provide to these people, it really allows them to bring out that authenticity. Right? You're essentially trying to tell the story, or in some way trying to tell the story, not of them as a CEO or as a business leader, but who they were prior to, or how they got to where they are now.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions we ask right now is if I'm interviewing Lance right now, right? I said, Lance, take me back to the first day you were about to get on that elevator and you're about to do your first day of work. You're able to have a cup of coffee with him right before he gets up there. Tell me now, having hindsight, what advice would you give them? And it's really fascinating. And, a spoiler alert, we're working on a Thanksgiving series of just asking one question, like, what are you thankful for, both personally and professionally? And the things that people have opened up about suicide in their family, about sobriety, just because they felt safe in an environment and they know they're going to be supported by the industry via a platform that's very supportive, has been incredible. And that's not anything I could predicted.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm excited to see it once Thanksgiving rolls around. So when you're developing content, let me ask you this. When you're developing content, how do you really strike that balance then of that compelling storytelling as well as that effective brand messaging? Is there sort of a philosophy that you follow to ensure that the content obviously is remaining engaging, right? You want the clicks, you want the views, you want the downloads, you want people to want to watch it or want to read it, while also still remaining credible and still serving those strategic goals that you have?
Right. Yeah. No, it's an excellent question, because what we come at it as every story has to be compelling. And there's been plenty of times that people have given us money and sat us down and it's like, no, we need to go into, insert garbity here.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not this platform. Then we'll refund the cash, right? Like, we're not looking to tell 8-minute video stories about your next ad tech mousetrap. It's important. It moves the industry forward, I'm sure. But like, if it's not something that I'm like can really sink my teeth in and gets me excited, then we look to tell a different story that way. And to the credit of our sponsors, they're like, okay, we get it. And then when they see a finished product and an edit of it, they're like, oh, okay, this is interesting to watch. And if I want to know more, then we link out to how they can find more information. And one of the biggest questions I get is like, well, which one's an editorial one that you just selected because you thought they were interesting? And then also which one is like paying you? And I go, well, that's kind of the point. And on our website, we feature our sponsors and that kind of stuff. So, people know who are sponsoring our content. But I think some of the biggest influences in our industry are journalists, right? And so I always make a point to say, I'm not a journalist. I don't do journalism. I tell stories, and it is different. And there are similarities, but it is very different in my mind. And so my favorite thing is today we're shooting 2 different journalists, and one from the Journal and then one from Axios. And I find they drive the most amount of traffic because no one ever asks their opinion about how things are happening, right? And it's not like, I always use this example, it's not like Variety is going to cover what Hollywood Reporter is doing and Hollywood Reporter is going to cover what Variety is doing. They're competitors by nature. But, they have a lot of information and a lot of people want to know what they think. And also, a lot of people think journalists are around hiding behind bushes looking to get that next story. But it turns out they're people. It turns out they're mothers. It turns out they're
they have
uncles.
lives.
They have lives. Yeah. And so for people to see that, I think is really interesting. So that's one of the cool things we're doing too.
So your career spanned large global media companies before ATM, NBC Universal, you mentioned you were Page, AT&T, AdWorks, TiVo, Warner Media, you mentioned most recently with Group M, WPP now. How have these experiences just shaped your vision at this still very young venture as you're continuing to obviously build it out now, only really months into it?
Yeah, I like to say we're babies. Yeah, we're still very young. So now 4 months into it, it's completely influenced. So every boss I've had, every mentor I've had is in my head on how to guide this company. I'm a communications and marketer by trade, the 20 years that I've done this, 20 years more now. But I'm not necessarily your traditionalist business school guy. And so leading this and knowing how companies work and knowing how storytelling works within the industry has really helped me on look, they're going through a merger. They can't say much. So how about we focus on the things they can say, right? Hey, look, right now they're going through a lot of tough times, but they just launched this thing 6 months ago. Let's just focus on that. And I don't have to ask questions about all the things that people know that they have read in the trades and through journalism and that kind of stuff too, which is still important, right? And so that goes into it. But the reason why I left an amazing job with an amazing boss, and I should say bosses as well too, is because I felt there was such a need. I wasn't being served as someone who could spend money on content, who had great relationships with journalists. I couldn't get the stories out that I needed to, and I wanted an outlet that told it not only just in an interesting way, but in a beautiful way. I'm so proud of the production quality that the team puts together. It's a 3-camera setup. Some's on a slider. It's dynamic using use of B-roll. And because we have editors globally, who are the best editors in town, if you're listening, we're able to, I've learned this term, follow the sun. So we can edit. And so Lance, I'm interviewing you today on ATM. If Lance needed to get that message out tomorrow, I could do that, right? So we really can be at the moment, which is really important to me. And because because we do it in a very succinct, quick, tight way, we're because we shoot in 4K, we shoot in, like log video for those nerds out there. It shoots beautifully, but we're able to do it quickly as well too.
So as a founder, right, you're not just building a company, you're kind of shaping a culture and vision that others obviously have to buy into, right? It can't just be yourself. You need a team around you.
Right.
How do you think about leadership now compared to the leadership roles you've been in over the last 20 or so years? How do you think about leadership now compared to those large organizations? And how does it influence really the culture that you're building at ATM?
Wow. I don't think anything has fundamentally changed. I put people into roles and responsibilities that I know are better than me at those particular things. So my partner, she's our COO. Her name's Christine Rader. Shout out Christine. She's incredible on getting all of the details done that need to be done that sometimes I don't think about, right? We worked at AT&T together, and when I told her I was doing this, she got it. She understood it immediately and this kind of stuff. And then I was looking for, I've been to a million different like photo shoots, video shoots, and that kind of stuff, but I didn't know like what the cameras were. Sure. So one of my closest friends, Lisa Berg, who's a photographer, I went and kind of showed her my vision, and she was like, "Oh, you need this guy. You need this person to help you. You need this person to help you." And so you go to those people who you've worked with and you trust, but that know way more than you in a specific area. And that's what I look to do. I look to find people that tell me while I'm wrong, because I think about ATM always. It is a child of mine. I've never had children, but I want to grow it. I want to make it bigger. I want to challenge it. I want to protect it. And so I'm thinking about it all the time, but I could be clouded in something because I'm being too myopic probably. I want someone who can intelligently stand up and say, hey, you're wrong because of this reason, and know that they have my best interest at heart. And I did that for the same companies that I worked for. And now we just move a lot faster. And so, but my philosophy on management is put people around you who can challenge you, who can make you better, and who really want to see you succeed. And then I think we all get to succeed that way.
Absolutely. So I want to quickly pivot the conversation just to the overall media landscape, because we talked earlier about how it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, it's moving just so fast, faster than really it ever has before. And I think it's certainly become a lot more democratized than it obviously was in the past, thanks to the rise of, I think, various platforms, obviously the great increase of short form content as well. But just looking at the media landscape holistically, what are the most significant trends to you shaping how the consumption of media, or shaping the consumption of media today? And how is ATM going about addressing those so that you stay ahead of the curve?
Right. So everything has to be topical now, right? And so that's why it was called At the Moment. The quick story behind the name is my niece had, I got her an iPad for her birthday because I had to be the best uncle in the world. And then she was like, hey, Uncle Rob, I have a question about my iPad. What are you doing ATM? And I was like, she wants money now? I just gave her an iPad. Like, what does she want? And then looked it up to not look all uncool. And then I was like, At the Moment, I was like, oh, of course. And then that kind of hit me of like, oh, well, everything is like news related and news driven. And also, why do people like go to the Cannes Film Festival or Cannes Lions? It's because they want to be a part of that moment, right? And so it's aspirational to a certain degree. And then also, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's ATM. That's what we cover: advertising, technology, and media. And so, and I just, because coming from an NBC, page world, I like the three letters, right? ATM. And you're used to saying those together as well. And so that is what drives the call to the industry, is being at the moment, whether it's at an event that is really important, or talking about something that's really relevant right now, right? And sure, like we will film people in advance and run them a week or so afterwards, maybe sometimes if it's more evergreen. But then sometimes we turn around things immediately. We were just at an Axios media conference led by Sarah Fisher, one of the best reporters in the industry, and we turned around our coverage of that event and who came and that kind of stuff the very next day, because once the event is over, then the moment is over, if you will. And so it's really important. So the immediacy of what we're able to do, I think, is really important. And also, my former team can always recite this. I always say you eat with your eyes first. So if if it's not well produced, unlike this beautiful place right here, it's not well produced, if it doesn't look great, if it's like very jump cutty and this kind of stuff, I'm probably not going to want to watch it. So that's why I want it to be beautiful. That's why I want it to be fun. That's why I want it to be funny. That's why I want it to be heartwarming, to engage you into watching. And so far, like I said, we're still babies, but like, you know, it is working and people are really watching and now want to be a part of ATM.
Yeah, you eat with your eyes first. You're right. It needs to be visually appealing before you even think about the actual content, right? You want to make sure that people actually enjoy what they're watching. So this, I think, is on paper a simple question, but I think it could provoke a pretty deep answer. What, in your view, does it mean to really be a media company in 2025 during a time where, in my opinion, it isn't enough just to produce content? You have to sort of be more than that.
Oh, absolutely. And like, look, this is what we're dealing with right now, because in some ways, all of our problems are the good problems, or at least that's what consultants would tell you, I'm sure, is that like, we grew really fast. We got a lot of sponsors on board who believe in us and who want to tell stories with us. So like, you know, we're able to like buy a camera, right? But what now is like, what does it mean to be a media company? And I was listening recently to an interview that the Pod Save America guys from the Obama administration did. And he was like, we called ourselves a media company, but we were really just guys recording ourselves and then, you know, pushing it out and asking our friends to listen. In some ways, and now like they're events, now they're huge, now they're like, you know, top 10 and this kind of stuff too, but they believed in becoming a media company. And so that's what we are now too. I think we have excellent production chops, but just like when I was at NBCU, that was a media company, but they also had Peacock Productions, which produced stuff for NBCU, but also for other companies and that kind of stuff. Also same thing with like Warner Brothers Television, I think of too. So I'm okay to produce stuff for our clients that is for their specific things. And we can do it in a beautiful way. But like, I want to become a destination that people can either lean forward to listen to find out about that new like TV show or product or their favorite influencer. We had one of a friend of mine who is a Peloton instructor. He has a huge Instagram, social, TikTok following, but I wanted to talk to him about the business of being Matty Majacomo, the business of when he talks to his followers, what goes into that. And so I think that's something interesting that we're working with on some of the social media companies on, is the business of being yourself in that kind of stuff. And so I don't want to just talk to executives. I don't want to just talk to influencers or, you know, companies and that kind of stuff. I think the executives bring a gravitas, and I think the influencers bring a cool factor. And then that kind of brings the industry along. And I think with our sponsors being different media companies, we already represent a large ecosystem of traditional media.
So I want to move now to just the conversation on collaboration, right? The media landscape, I think, has become increasingly collaborative, where companies finding new ways to partner across platforms, formats, audiences, sometimes even with people they may in the past have considered competitors.
Sure.
How do you approach partnership at ATM, and to you, what makes a media collaboration really, truly successful?
Well, you're both able to provide something that probably the other partner can't do or doesn't want to do, quite frankly, right? So we partner. We don't produce events. ATM. We don't have ATM produced events. I mean, maybe in the future that's something interesting. Maybe award shows. I'm looking to build a media company here, Lance, and so that's possible. But right now, I just want to produce the best content and the best videos possible, and so it's why like looking to produce. Even I think NYSE and ICE do such a great job of bringing in so many different media partners, but you yourself as part of a content studio media company within here, right? I think that's really interesting, but you bring in others for different reasons and values and that kind of stuff too, and hopefully ATM as well. And so what is really exciting is working with those events to not only, like for instance, Axios, way bigger media company than ATM, right? But we have a specific audience that is interested in this type of content, and we're able to celebrate what that media company is doing. So they give us a lot of access, right? And so it's really great. Advertising Week is coming up. We're partnering with them, and we're partnering on what they're doing. So we're talking to them. We're also working with the ANA. and the Paley Center on promoting them and promoting their events and promoting the things that they're doing. But then that also gives us access to create cool content, because I'm not interested in talking to, with all due respect, like managers of like product, whatever. I'm not interested in doing that. I want to talk to decision makers. I want to talk to people who have influence. And so by doing that, and because of our sponsors have been so great to afford us the opportunity to be able to do that, we're able to get great content, and not only then shines a light on that media company or that particular event, and makes them create FOMO and have moments. They're also giving us access to, and so far we've had only open arms kind of to some of those partnerships.
Amazing. So as we begin to wrap up our conversation, Robert, what does success look like for ATM beyond just the views, the likes, the engagement metrics? What kind of long-term impact are you hoping ATM will have on the media and storytelling space?
I think we don't celebrate our successes today. And that is one thing that I want to change, and that's what I want ATM to do. I think, and rightfully so, look, I watch CNBC, that's here in New York Stock Exchange right now, all the time, and, great, you beat your quarter, but it fell 5% because the guidance is maybe we won't do as well in the fourth quarter or something like that too. So not only are you beating double digits on whatever bottom line, you went down because who cares about that? We're looking forward, right? And I just think to myself, 20 years ago when I started as a page, there was not social media here, like there was nothing like that. And now, like, those are the predominant drivers of advertising right now. So there's a lot of success just in my 20-year span of like when I started in the industry and what is driving it now. And I don't think we celebrate that enough. And so that's what I see success as, is like ATM shining a light on those people, on those things, on those groups of those companies, on those influencers that are really changing, maybe even just slowly, but really kind of changing the industry. And people want to go to ATM to hear those stories and learn more about those people and companies, not only for what they're doing, but just also for people. And like, how did you figure out a work-life balance and that kind of stuff too? I think that's really fascinating.
Absolutely. So Robert, we obviously talked earlier about building a media company, or what it means to be a media company here in 2025. So as you build ATM, you said only, 4 months right now. You mentioned it, just babies, still continuing to grow. When you look ahead to the next few years, both creatively, strategically, what excites you most about the future of ATM, and where do you see this really going, when we speak again in 2026, 27, 28, and beyond?
What was really exciting to me when I went to Cannes as Robert Wheeler, CEO, founder of ATM, it was a struggle to kind of explain it quickly. I've gotten a little better on my little, my stump speech, if you will.
The little elevator pitch?
Yeah, my little elevator pitch there. But there were like 2 or 3 times where people were like, oh, you're ATM? Oh, I get their newsletter. Oh, yeah. And so that was really cool. What I want to do is create an environment which it was full of success. So I would love to be able to have events. I would love to be able to have awards and promote and the successes of the industry, of what they're doing there too. And love to always have a place where, like when you would go, or still today, you can go to, the Hudson newsstand in the airport and see People Magazine, and just know that you're going to flip through there, find interesting things. It's never going to be super doom and gloom and depressing. It's going to be interesting. I want the virtual Hudson newsstand people to come to atm.media or get our newsletter, your ATM withdrawal. You're welcome. And just know that you're going to see a colleague that you did a business deal with and hear about their struggles and how they're trying to figure out that balance. Hear about the amazing vacation that the CEO planned himself because he's so obsessed with planning vacations, those type of things. And then also hear about what they think the industry is going, and during Thanksgiving, what they're thankful for, right? And so I think it is, I want people to experience the brand on kind of all sides, but then, hopefully also we can start licensing the content out. So you don't just have to come to atm.media, or you don't just have to go to our Instagram or LinkedIn pages. You can experience all over and get that content, and it has that look and feel of ATM, which hopefully people will know over time.
Well, Robert, we are so excited to see where ATM goes in the near and long-term future. Thanks so much for joining us inside the Ice House.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. I appreciate it.